One of the interesting things about math, and I used to hate math when I was younger, but that's because I was improperly taught. One of the interesting things about math is that mathematics is the language of our universe. I mean, there are many different types of languages, right? Like English or even code, for example. But I don't think we can use these languages to coordinate or communicate with other beings. And by other beings, I don't just mean aliens. I mean beings that are outside of our own dimension. Now, for you to understand what communication with beings outside our dimension means, first you need to understand how dimensions work. So you've probably heard of 2D, which is a plane, and you've heard of 3D, which is, when you talk about a place, you have the Z coordinate now for depth, and then you have 4D, which is the time component, which is like multiple different blocks of 3D. Now, let me show you what an interaction, or let me run you through what an interaction between a 2D creature and a 3D creature looks and sounds like. Let's assume you have a character on a piece of paper. Let's assume it's a picture of Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse is just 2D. It doesn't have any idea or sense of depth. Now let's assume you're in the real world and you have this Mickey Mouse on a piece of paper, and let's assume for whatever reason Mickey Mouse is conscious in the 2D world. Now let's assume you take a ball, like a physical basketball or a tennis ball, and you pass it through that piece of paper. Imagine what Mickey Mouse will see or experience. Now, whoever is in that 2D world will only experience the ball as a circle, because the intersection of the 2D plane and the ball is the circle. The only time they will ever interact is at the 2D plane, which is a circle. So first, Mickey Mouse will see a small dot, which will slowly expand as the ball passes through, and then slowly contract back to nothingness at all. Right? That's how a Mickey Mouse in the 2D world will experience a 3D ball passing through it. First expansion, then contraction. Similarly, we have to try and imagine what it's like for a 3D being to experience a 4D being's interaction with the 3D world, and it'll probably happen at the time axis. Now, regardless of whatever these interactions are, it will be impossible for a 2D being and a 3D being to agree on a language or even communicate with each other in any language apart from the language of mathematics. Similarly, whether you're in 2D or 3D or 5D or 10,000D, mathematics is the language that governs the universe, because all beings, regardless of their dimension, can talk to each other in mathematics, and that will be the truth. So if you have any sort of formula in mathematics, if 1 + 2 = 3, it'll be the same whether in the 2D world or the 3D world or the 4D world. And human beings today, we actually do math on the 4D world. And when we do math in 4th dimension, we actually map it out in a formula, in a flat formula. And we always make sure that it's an equality, which means whatever's on the left side should be equal to the right side. And whatever that formula is, we can represent the most complex of worlds in these formulas. And it'll be true whether in the 2D world or the 4D or the 5D or the 10,000D world. And that is the beauty of math. It is the truth, and it is the fundamental truth, it's true regardless of where you are and what you're doing, right? And that's why I love learning about math, because once you start realizing that it's the language of truth and it's just about equalities, it's very easy for you to actually use math constructively, and you'll truly understand what those formulae mean. Remember when you were told x = y, what does that mean? And then when you map it on a 2D plane, you realize it's just a line. Right? It's a straight line at 45-degree angle, and you realize that formula you were writing down was just representing the 2D world. Similarly, you can represent that formula 3D worlds in formulas too. You can represent 4D worlds in formulas too, and it's so wonderful and beautiful to see this geometry be represented by pure text, regardless of whether the 4D creatures or a 5D creature uses sticks or whatever symbols they use to represent math. The equations, the equalities on the left and right will always be the same. 1 + 2 will always be equal to 3 in our universe. And it's a little humbling, but at the end of the day, human beings, all creatures on the planet, we can actually represent an entire human being in just mathematics, right? We just need to study a lot more about how humans are built, but you can represent everything in math. If you open Photoshop and you draw a square using the shape tool, it is actually math that governs that shape tool. all the coordinates are stored, and that's why the square, retains its non-blurriness when you expand it. Whereas if you go to Google, look for an image of a square and then put it on Photoshop and then resize it, you'll see a lot of blur, because math is not determining that shape. It's not formula based. So a lot to learn with math for me and for everybody else listening to this. And it's wonderful to understand at the end of the day, all of us are just geometric shapes that can be represented in this wonderful language called mathematics.